Okay, yeah. Have enough liquids here. Yeah. So this young lady, I haven't met. What is your name? Susie. No, behind Susie. Yeah. You were thinking when I said young lady, you were thinking I was talking to you, Susie? That's good. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So Neely, is it? Neely or? Nili. Neely. Indian? So is that an Indian word?
Blue. Neil.
Oh, blue. Yes, yeah. Neela, yeah.
But your name is
Melanie, because when we talk about one of the Vajrapanis, so Neela Bara, holding blue or wearing blue, yeah. Nilambara, yeah. Very good, excellent. So nice to welcome Neela, and everyone else has been here. You were here also.
Judy. This morning.
You were here this morning.
Oh, yes.
Judy and Diti. Kiki. Jigi.
With J sound, like a Gael.
Gigi. Aja protected. Oh, okay. Persian. Okay, we have Indian, Persian, Kentucky. Chicago. Yeah. So if you are watching this on FaceTime in, I don't know, Belarus or something, you're wondering why because it's Sunday afternoon, people have gone off. It's a beautiful day here in Raleigh, North Carolina, so we have a smaller group for the last session, so we were just joking a little before we began. And yeah. So, hi. Let's calm our minds a little bit as a prelude to try to develop a good motivation. So sit comfortably with your spine straight, spine erect. This is a period of the day, we just had lunch, most of us, when you might feel a little bit tired, so it's good to try to keep your mind alert. We can begin with a breathing meditation that will be elaborated on next weekend in the Mahamudra course. Up till now, we've just been watching the breathing as a prelude to looking at the clear light nature of the mind. So imagine very slowly breathing in inspiration from all the Buddhas, the Bodhisattvas, meditational deities in the form of white light. As you breathe in, hold it, unlike the other breathing meditation where you just let the breath go out. And imagine that white light burning up all of the negative energy within you. First set, let's say, all of the tension within your body, your neck, your shoulders, your back, your tummy, your legs, wherever it might hurt. And then as you imagine that's burned up by the white light, the residue of that negative energy you breathe out in the form of black soot, smog, from your nostrils, imagining it goes out beyond Raleigh and is deposited in Washington, D.C. No, I'm just teasing. And beyond this world, beyond the solar system, beyond the galaxy, so it has nothing to do with you. So just that kind of visualization will take some concentration, because to imagine that and still synchronize it with you breathing out, you might feel you have to breathe in again. Then breathe in again, and we'll do this again and again. Breathe in again with white light and inspiration. Imagine burning up all of the desire energy, the attachment, unsatisfied energy, as though that the mounting winds of those minds are affected by that. And as you breathe out the remnants of that, so it has nothing to do with you any longer. Like good riddance to desirous, unfulfilled, craving energy. Then say third one, Imagine breathing in white light again, burning up all of the hatred energy, anger, resentment, grudge, some, grudge you hold, or vengeance, anger, all that energy, especially toward telemarketers. All that goes beyond you, so it has nothing to do with you. Breathe in again, and imagine all the ignorant energy, uncaring, not understanding the context of things, ignorance of inherent existence. All of that is burned up. And instead of imagining it goes out, this time imagine that it goes into the central channel, we call it, the Shushuma, or Avaduti, that you can imagine going from your navel up to your heart chakra, to your throat chakra, to your crown chakra, and down to the third eye area, what we'll call the brow aperture, right between your two brows. And imagine that ignorant energy just is dissipated into the central channel and therefore neutralized. So keep on doing that. First body, then attachment, then hatred, then ignorance. Go back to the body. having cleansed the defiled prana, the defiled winds in that way, try to concentrate on your mental consciousness. That is to say, as though one portion of the mind, little corner of the mind, was paying attention to what was happening in the rest of the mind. At first, recognizing the content of the mind, what's appearing to your mind, what you're thinking about, and then further to divest yourself of following those thoughts or images and pictures within your mind, and trying to sense the subject mind itself, its nature as being clear and knowing. Even when the thoughts are aggressively popping their presence in front of you, try to recognize the spaciousness of the mind within which they're arising that allows them to emerge from it unhindering, not viscous like maple syrup or honey or even water. Things can arise within the mind and dissolve back into it when we don't pay attention to them. Like the joy one can feel when one has been taught the situation that we have right now, a life of leisure and endowment, the great joy that can rise. It was always there, but we didn't realize it until now. Like that, this resource within our mind, it's always there, but we didn't realize it as a resource, this clear light nature from which we can eliminate all of the faulty states of mind, our laziness, our low self-esteem, our attached energy, our clingy, needy energy, our anger, our resentment. How wonderful it is that I have an opportunity to see this and recognize it as such. And think that this afternoon I'm going to participate in the Dharma talk, listening to the words of the Buddha, contemplating them, weighing them, in other words, investigating them, and then those times that a clear understanding arises, perhaps a new or revivifying an old understanding, try to hold that single-pointedly. What we call wisdom. So hearing, contemplating, and meditating on what's being said this afternoon. Not simply to accumulate knowledge, not simply for the happiness of this lifetime, becoming more calm, being able to cope with the tensions and so forth, although those are byproducts, but with a spiritual goal, to heal ourselves in a spiritual way so that as time progresses, this life and future lives, we can be less a burden to to others, less problematic, without anger, without clinginess, without ignorance. We no longer will cause harm to others, and eventually we'll be in a position to help them, not just in a worldly way with food or medicine or advice for this world, teaching professions or different crafts, but teaching other living beings the various ways to escape from suffering. The paths, as said in the Bodhisattva teachings, the paths that lead everywhere. Lead from everywhere to enlightenment. I'm going to listen to the teachings with that aim in mind. That's my goal, and understanding that listening to the teachings accumulates virtuous karma. Like going with your new electric car, going to some charging station so that you can go further along the path. Recharging our store of merit to be able to make realizations on that journey to enlightenment. And then relax again. Bring your attention back to the present. Any observations or questions about the meditation? How was your meditation? Anyone? I forgot your name. Laura. How was your meditation? Yeah. Besides just saying, good.
Very relaxing.
Okay.
When we say that the mind is clear and knowing, can you expand on that?
Yes. It's lubricating my vocal cords here. Sorry, I wasn't trying to be rude. If you're interested, by the way, next weekend the course will deal with this subject in greater detail. But just to answer in this context, generally in the Buddhist scriptures, and especially the Buddhist textbooks, when the subject of mind is brought up, there is a definition of consciousness or mind. And it's very simple, deceptively simple. That which is clear and knowing. So there's debate about what clear means. Sometimes in a very beginning sense, easily accessible, it means that the mind is not material, obstructing. Mind is not constructed out of matter. We might think sometimes that the mind is somehow, because of our Western understanding of the brain and the mind somehow being together, that the brain is the mind, and maybe even thinking, therefore, the mind is material or something that's in sort of like, what is it? I can't remember the technical term. Something that has arisen as an artifact of the material. Like, for instance, the rigidity of a picket fence. If you put a whole bunch of wooden stakes down and you tie them together, a new phenomena of that rigidity, or a lattice, what is it called? Epiphenomena. So there's different, the mind, some scientists think the mind is material, or the brain is the mind, or something. Then there are those who think that the mind is some kind of epiphenomena, which is not something spiritual or divorced from material, but arises as a secondary quality of the, say, the brain. It's called epiphenomena. Neither of that the mind is material nor that it's an epiphenomena are Buddhist positions. Buddhist position is that the mind is something which is of a different nature than matter. When we talk about, I joked the other day about talking about, you can give the example, all phenomena I can liken to a pizza. My Chicago example. Maybe deep dish, I'm not sure. You can cut a pizza different ways, right? Squares, which you were surprised to hear. Oh, you didn't like that idea?
Oh, only Sicilian.
Only Sicilian, okay.
Pizza, okay.
Okay. Like for instance, one way you can divide all phenomena into permanent and impermanent. There's nothing else. Everything, the whole pizza will be divided by that way. Or you could cut it a different way. Virtuous, non-virtuous, and neutral phenomena. Or, all different ways that you could divide the same group, mathematically speaking, a sphere, you can divide it in different ways. Now, you can do the same thing with impermanent things. All the things that are impermanent, imagine a big pizza, impermanent pizza. Generally, impermanent phenomena are of three kinds. You need three slices. Do you know what they are? Do you know, Jason? And what's your dog's name? Charlie, you know?
He doesn't, he's not telling.
Is that like pleasant, unpleasant, neutral? No.
Good try.
Is it rising, abiding, and declining?
No. Material, that form, that which is neither form nor not form, such as what is impermanent but not form and not consciousness? Pardon? September?
Like a time or?
Maybe time, yeah. One example is like the person. Is it your name is Jill? Is it like Jill? Jill is a person, right? The actual Jill that conventionally exists. Now, the very subtle thing that we ordinarily don't apprehend. Usually, when we conceive of someone else's person, self-ship, or whatever you want to call them, person, or if we, especially with our own self, it seems to be something solid and findable. But the way that a person exists is just as a name given to your body and mind complex, right? Just designated, just imputed. Have you heard that before? Mm-hmm. So that person is impermanent, but that person, conventionally existent person, is neither the body nor the mind. It's that which is labeled on that combination. So that's one category of impermanent phenomena. Not persons, but what we call unassociated compositional factors, unassociated with body and mind, in the sense that it is not body, it is not mind. The third category, or I could have said the second category, consciousness, is not matter. Consciousness has a different continuum. You cannot create consciousness in the same way that you can create energy out of matter. E = mc squared. You can create photons, or you can create transmute matter from one variety to another. But whatever you do to matter, you can't create mind out of it, consciousness. So when we say mind is that which is clear and knowing, on a very basic level, it means that immateriality. Because it's not material, mind is not like matter which obstructs you. The mind, one begins to have a beginning understanding, as in our meditation, that the mind is unobstructing, unlike matter. Thoughts can emerge in it, anywhere within it, And skillfully, if you or by themselves, they can dissolve back into that consciousness. In the same way, on a day where there are clouds, say some rain clouds, but the sun is out, the cloud and the sunlight impinge upon the cloud, the moisture of the cloud can evaporate, and that visible cloud can disappear. Where did it go? It didn't go east, west, north, south, up, down. It sort of dissolved back into the air, let's say. A little bit like that. Thoughts can dissolve back into the clear light nature of the mind. They can emerge. So knowing that and meditating on that, one can, especially if you think about it in the right way, you can understand, I don't have to follow these thoughts. These thoughts, they, if left unattended, if not given energy to perpetuate them, they will disappear. They'll dissipate. They'll dissolve back into consciousness. I can be left in a calm state of mind, which I think you were appreciative of when I asked, how was your meditation? You said it was, what did you say, relaxing or something. Physically relaxing sometimes, but also mentally relaxing. I'll mention in the course next week also this one Tibetan teacher told me once when I came with some problems, my mind was upset about this or that. In broken English, he said, don't need unhappy mind. Don't need unhappy mind. Maybe I'm using too much accent. Can you understand the words? What is he saying? You don't need to have an unhappy mind. Maybe sometimes we might feel we deserve it if we have low self-esteem. I've been bad. I deserve this or whatever. But unhappiness is something that you follow. You think, he said this, then he said that, then he said that. She did this, she did that, then she did that. And the mind, because of following those thoughts, unbeknownst to us, we're creating our own unhappiness. We're perpetuating the unhappiness. What he was saying was, you don't need to be unhappy. Almost, for some people, that can be a revelation. If you think about it, there's something very useful there. Anyway, I'll talk more about that later. So the mind is that which is clear and knowing. So the clarity of the mind is not just like the clarity of a crystal. The light can pass through the crystal glass, let's say, like clear crystal, clear glass. The mind has a different quality that thoughts can arise within it. That's different than a crystal. Also, the mind has the function of knowing. It cognizes that which arises within it. Whatever consciousness touches, it has an experience of it. The primal level of that is what we say knowing. There are other aspects of that. Feeling, like pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, other things that are called secondary mental factors. But the main quality, the general quality, is just knowing. So that's the reason for investigating the mind this way, is because all of our interaction with the world depends on our experiencing it through the mind, knowing it through the mind. And if we can get to know the mind, we can understand better our position in the world, in, say, spiritual sense. Of the different objects of meditation, the mind is said to be one of the most profound. The Dalai Lama has said that, and it's not just his own idea, this is something one finds in the scriptures. If you realize the ultimate nature of the mind, you can make incredibly rapid spiritual progress, much more so than if you understand the ultimate nature of other things. When I talk about ultimate nature, this term that we call the emptiness, or shunyata, the emptiness of the mind, if you understand that. So what we're doing here at this beginning meditation, we're trying to perceive the conventional nature of the mind, this clarity, its unobstructiveness, and the ability to know and experience that which arises within it. Calming the mind, other thoughts we don't follow, we can be left in a very good concentrated state. Then the next step within that, we recognize our self-identity, that's who we are, who we think we are. There were some psychologists, it was a common thing some time ago in certain branches of modern psychology. The therapist or other people in your group would look at you and say, "Who are you?" And you would give, "I am George." "Who are you?" "Oh, okay, I'm a man." "Who are you?" You get theoretically over many hours, maybe you vacillate to very superficial kinds of identifications of yourself. I'm the body, I'm the mind. Finally, you might be left face to face at the end with some kind of understanding that there's no self the way you thought. I think that there were some Hindu gurus who used to have some procedures like that. But at any rate, we next, after looking at the clarity of the mind in the Mahamudra, which we'll talk about next week, one tries to identify how your mind is recognizing yourself. And through analysis, realizing its ultimate nature is being empty of that. In the sense like in the desert, you may see a mirage and think there's water there. When you get to that location or you keep on going, you don't find anything. You might have to search again and again, but finally you still see there's some shimmering like there's water, but with skill and wisdom later, you understand that appearance is empty of water. Can I use it that way? Empty of water. Like the reflection, Charlie's reflection in a mirror. Charlie's this cute little dog. Would Charlie sometimes think there is another dog in a mirror, or does he know? You might say, "Oh, his ears go up, tail goes up." Once someone is wise to what's happening, they would realize that although the appearance is there, that looks like another Charlie, it is actually devoid, empty of what the mind was imagining was behind there. That's a little bit of just superficial understanding of emptiness, just to get an idea. So one recognizes the emptiness of the self within this clear mind that one has cultivated for some time, and then one applies the same logic to the mental consciousness, the mind itself, that has been appearing to you. It's very clear, you've got to know it, that's the conventional nature of the mind. Now you recognize that just like the reflection in a mirror, this has some sense of findability, the mind, the consciousness, the clarity and knowing. And with logic, you can understand the emptiness of that mind. That's kind of the strategy of the Mahamudra that's been set forth in the scriptures, in the Galupa tradition. So that may not be answering your question to your satisfaction, but I wanted to.
No, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
so.
I think in meditation, personally for me, the knowing, I've started to go to, well, then there's a knower now. And so I'm looking forward to next weekend.
Say for instance, just to tie a knot on that, the knower. So when you say clear and knowing, you say, okay, George, you were talking about always looking at at the clarity. What about looking at the knower? Well, we do look at the knower also, but you are understanding the knower implicitly because you are knowing the clarity. One way of thinking of it is one part of the mind, like a spy, is looking at the rest of the mind. And so you're understanding, oh, that's clear. that understanding, that knowing, is the knowing quality of the mind. Because when you're looking, one thing you're looking at is the clarity, you're not looking at the knowing at that time. You're not focusing on the knowing. Or at other times, you can ask yourself, what is knowing? This, picture of summer, what are we now? Autumn day. Something, I could be out, rather than listening to this monk, I could be out walking in the lake or something. Some picture in your mind. And to let go of that image by not, the different ways of cutting off your attention to that, just withdrawing your attention, like a tortoise or a turtle withdraws its limbs, or understanding that if you don't follow it, it will dissolve back into the mind. Another way is to, as though turning around and try to perceive the subjective mind that's knowing it. So that at the first glance there, one is trying to just perceive the knower, clear and knowing. So in all of these various facets, as one gets experience with them, one can become more and more able, more and more skilled in controlling the mind. And once you understand the ultimate nature of the mind, the not just its clear light nature, which is the conventional nature, but its ultimate nature is being empty of inherent existence. Because of that, everything that the mind perceives, you would understand. If the perceiver, the subject mind, is empty of inherent existence, everything that it perceives is also empty of inherent existence. You don't have to prove that. You just know this one thing, and you know everything. Okay, I'll leave that for that. So we're going to get back to the Jataka Tales.
Thank you.
Okay, sure. Wow, I forgot there was a train here. That's quite loud, huh?
Sometimes it makes a great underline. I mean, the timing of it sometimes is.
That was sublime. That was just going to say, let's get back to the Jatakas. That was great, yeah. So I had hoped there would be, I don't know, maybe more men, but there's one I wanted to read now from the Giada Kamala. So of these three texts that I have, there are three different collections, not just different translations of the same text. This is a collection called the Jataka Kamala, or Rosary or Garland of Jataka Tales. What language did you speak in India? Were you from South India or North India?
I was born here in America.
Oh, okay.
My parents are from Bihar.
Bihar, so probably Hindi? Maybe even, was there some Sanskrit in any of your members of your family? Because some people, like religious people, even still speak Sanskrit, although if you read in the books it says it's a dead language. There are people who speak. Did you ever study Sanskrit?
I studied a little when I was in college, but my mom might say it with a mantra, but they didn't converse.
Oh, okay. So they might know. So Jataka means life stories. Mala means garland, so about a string, a combination of collection of life stories. Life stories, not like biographies of great generals or Einstein or something like this, but of the previous lives of Shakyamuni before he manifested as the Buddha, when he was a Bodhisattva. So this, in one particular one here, I wanted to read number 17, called The Jar. Did you read this one? Did you read, Donna, the Giada Kamala before?
No.
Okay. Venerable, have you read this one? The Jar? You're not sure, because you have to hear might remember the name. So this is, what page is this? The Jar, 148.
No.
Okay. So I read this when I gave a course in the Jatakas in Asheville, North Carolina. Some people, this resonated very much with some of them. So here's each of these Jatakas in this book. The Giada Kamala has some nice line drawings. So there's some, looks like some god or something holding a jar, and some person down here with hands. Who knows what that means? So the little aphorism before the story, just after the title, says, "Drink is the source of many ills. Knowing this, the virtuous attempt to influence others against drinking. Even more so do they deter themselves." Okay.
Geshe tells the story all the time.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
This particular Jataka?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
not all the time.
I heard he inquired about how the course was, and he was a little bit, what I understood, he was a little bit miffed, like that more people didn't come. He said, maybe people thought it was just kids' stories or, fables. What did he say? Parables or something?
Yeah, maybe he thought it was for kids.
Maybe, yeah, maybe they thought it was for kids. So you are more, I think the women have more smarts. So, even though you may be bored if you've heard this before, because Geshe has told that, once the Bodhisattva manifested as chakra. So chakra is another name for Indra, right? Would you agree? Generally, I mean, there's different names for Indra, different names for all of the different gods. How could Buddha become chakra? Isn't chakra eternal? Isn't Indra eternal? No, Indra is like us, a being who is born in cyclic existence. In fact, Naga, you have been Indra, chakra, numberless times in different lifetimes. You were the king of the desire realm gods. Not just once, numberless times. And Jill, right? Jill, you were. Yeah, now don't think only Naga. You were also chakra. Like, oh, chakra. I mean, the Naga, So he took rebirth at a time when no one else was being born as Indra, a chakra. Lord of the gods. Compassion having purified his mind, every one of his actions was directed toward fostering the happiness and good of others through deeds of giving, morality, and self-restraint. Now, who is born as the king of the gods may not actually always be a holy being. Might be someone who's just accumulated an incredible amount of merit for their own sake. They could be born as Indra, right? Or it can be sometimes holy beings are born in such a position because they realize that from that status they can help people. Being born in some lofty status like that. So this is the time when the Bodhisattva, the previous life of the Buddha, was born as chakra. Although he deeply enjoyed all the sensual pleasures which were due the gods, not once did he relax his exertions for the benefits of the world. As a rule, those who drink deeply of the strong liquor of glory, so he's just kind of using metaphorically here, lose their alertness and forget even their own interests. They are like those gone mad. Remember, there was a story we read earlier, she who drives men mad? That same word mad could be, say, intoxicated, so it's probably they forget even their own interests. They are like those gone mad. Chakra, however, did not let the intoxication of power go to his head. So you can although this is going to be talking about also actual liquor, which intoxicates, one can talk about many things that intoxicate. When you lose your perspective, and power can be one of those things. Again, not to mention any names in the world today. On the contrary, his interest in the welfare of all others increased. For knowing his own nature well, he never forgot the interests of others. And his love for all beings was so great that he considered even the most miserable creature a kinsman. One day, as the great being was casting his eyes upon humanity, his gaze, deep and strong like his nature, full of love and compassion, it focused on a king named Sarva Mitra. What does that mean? Nili.
I think Mitra means friend.
Right? Sarva? Sarva means,
For everyone.
yeah, you say for everyone. Sarva means all, like we say, Om Sarva Dharma, Om Svabhava Shuddha, Sarva Dharma, all dharmas, all phenomena. So all, maybe it could be friend for all, because Sanskrit's very interesting. You have to, some of the compounds you can have to figure out which way the words go.
Dharma means all the dharmas.
Yes. So it's a mantra that we often recite. Om Sbhavava Shuddha Sarva Dharma Sbhavava Shuddha Ham. You've heard the word Sarva before in our Buddhist classes. So he was called Sarva Mitra, maybe friend to all, or lots of friends. I don't know. Friend of all. They give their attempt at translating it. Friend of all in quotations. This king, by keeping company with non-virtuous folk, so Shakra is looking down upon the king named Sarvamitra. This king, Sarvamitra, by keeping company with non-virtuous folk, had developed an attachment to strong liquor, in which he indulged both with various citizens and with his retinue, his court, let's say, his family. Realizing that this king saw nothing wrong with drinking, the great being reflected with compassion, thinking, what a great misery afflicts this people. Alas, a sweet delight at first, drinking leads to darkness and great destruction. It is a twisted path that looks enticing, but leads far from enlightenment. Those who follow the lure of liquor never recognize the evils they embrace. But what can I do? What can you do to help that? Interesting. It says the king, by keeping company with non-virtuous folk, had developed an attachment to strong liquor. Remember we talked the other day also about the habits you could pick up by associating with bad friends, you might say. So there's a famous story that I'm sure Geshe-la must have told you. Are you already anticipating the story? In Tibet, there were two friends. One of whom, they were young boys, let's say, one of whom was a little bit naughty, the other one was more virtuous. The naughty one had bad habits. He just did naughty things. He went off to a place in Tibet called, what was it called? Redding. You know what Redding was? Anyone know? Atisha and his disciple Kadampa started a monastery and community in the latter part of his stay in Tibet. They continued for a long time, called Redding. It was where all very virtuous people, the Kadampa Geshis were from that area. I had a chance of visiting there when I visited Tibet, and it's at Redding, in that area, right in that compound, you might say, I don't know, hundreds of acres, that Lama Tsongkhapa comprised the foundation of all good qualities, Nyanden Shugurma, that he wrote some part, either the preface or some part of the Lanrim Chemo up in a cave called Senge Ka. Senge is a Tibetan word that means lion, Ka means mouth. So it's like, it must have looked like, at that time, like the mouth of a lion, some cave up there so he could get away from the hustle and bustle. Anyway, it was a place where if you were to go live there, everyone was very virtuous. What, a little bit like what, New York City? No, I don't know. Is there any place in the States we could say that has a reputation of being virtuous? Maybe some Pardon?
I live with Asheville.
Asheville, thank you. I live north. Okay. I don't live in Asheville. I'm close. Portland.
It's really safer. People don't even lock up in the mountains.
There you go. So, but both Portland and Asheville have the same motto. They, like if we say Asheville, keep Asheville weird, and then the subsequent is make Asheville weirder. Yeah. Same thing with Portland. Keep Portland weird, make Portland weirder. There's similar places. So maybe virtuous. But anyway, Redding, the naughty one went to Redding, and the really good boy, he went to Lhasa, the capital. And you might think Lhasa is a famous place, it must be good. but it's kind of the den of iniquity, the gambling in the streets, drinking. I don't know if they smoked, but they used to chew tobacco and had snuff and, gamble all the time. Maybe you've seen on special days the Tibetans gambling with dice and everything. So after some time, they came back together, some reunion between the two. Maybe it was like a year later, 2 years later. The naughty one who'd gone to Reading now was, not only relaxed, his mind was very pure, he'd given up all his bad habits. It was very nice. The virtuous boy, the good boy before, who'd gone to Lhasa, now was gambling, swearing, hanging out with the disreputable friends and maybe stealing things. So our associates, the people that we call friends, that we spend time with, do have a very powerful effect on our behavior. So as it mentions here, the king, by keeping company with non-virtuous folk, is exactly that, had developed an attachment to strong liquor in which he indulged with his citizens and with his retinue. So the Bodhisattva, manifesting as Chakra at that life, said, "What can I do?" After pondering deeply, Chakra soon saw what action to take. Why, it's clear. It is the nature of people to imitate the foremost among them. The king, therefore, is the person to be cured, since it is from him that all the good and evil of his people flows forth. We do believe that to a certain degree about our leaders, right? Maybe, I know, not now. Well, one might say that, well, whoever the leader, you start to see their qualities or faults in the population. People emulate that, and you notice now more that the population affect the king or the leader. Yeah, but here, if you have, the point is that there are always people who are charismatic or have the karma to be a leader for whatever reason. They created karma in the past. And they have an influence on others. Of course, there are other influences. Of course, the population may influence them also. But this is the point here, is that the leader, like I said, mom and dad, when you're a kid, they're your leaders. If mom and dad are pious or good, you've grown up and you pick up good habits. I remember my mom always saying to my brother and I want you to be good. I want you to be good boys. And it brings me to tears sometimes. I was just like, that's an incredible teaching, And so the great being took the shape of a majestic Brahmin, shining like pure gold. He nonetheless affected a stern demeanor, his hair matted and twisted, his body covered with the ascetic's austere bark garment and deerskin. Can you imagine this? Those words, yeah? While King Sarvamitra sat with his friends, arguing the virtues of this or that liquor, I can say, Coors is better than Budweiser, or having a stronger liquor, They're debating the virtues of one liquor or another. At that time, Chakra appeared before them, standing in midair. So this is going to get to their attention, right? A jar of moderate size hanging from his left side. Filled with surprise and veneration, the assembly rose from their seats and folded their palms in respect. So that's what this is. Now you get it, that drawing. So this is the Bodhisattva manifesting a Chakra. He's in midair. He's holding a jar of moderate size at his left side, and maybe this is the king or someone else. Sort of, whoa. With a deep voice, rumbling like a giant thundercloud, Chakra sang, "Look at this vessel filled to the brim, flowers laughing around its neck, hand engraved with splendid trim. Who will buy this tempting gem?" It's an attempt to put into English verse. Probably the Sanskrit and the Tibetan was good. It's sort of, this beautiful jar wreathed with lovely flowers. How proudly it wears its graceful foliage. Come, Which of you wishes to buy it? So he's manifesting this way in this group of people who are enamored with liquor and debating about its, which is the best one. Astonished at such an apparition, the king fixed his eyes on the Brahmin with reverence. Raising his joined palms, he replied, "You appear as bright as the sun, as graceful as the moon, yet like a great Muni." Do you know what a Muni is? Not Moonie. That was some. This is Muni. Maybe. No. Do you know what? What? It's part of the name of Shakyamuni, the Muni of the Shakya clan. But what is a Muni?
Muni means rishi.
Yeah, you say sage. Sage, powerful one.
Yeah. It's more than rishi, I think. Right?
Yeah, there's someone. Yeah, in Tibetan it's Tubwang, what we call Buddha Tubwang, the Lord of Munis. There are many Munis in the world, sage, yeah. So, astonished at such an apparition, the king fixed his eyes on the Brahmin with reverence. Raising his joined palms, he replied, "You appear as bright as the sun, as graceful as the moon, yet like a great Muni. What name are you known by in this world? You manifest such disparate qualities that we are uncertain." Shakti replied, "Just buy this jug. Afterwards you will know me." Sounds very New York, doesn't it? "Buy if you are not afraid of the sufferings in the next world or the calamities still to come in this." Whoa. First time he's given anyone who's listening, he said, just buy this jug. Afterwards you'll know me. But if you are not afraid of the sufferings in the next world or the calamities still to come in this, already, whoa. So the king replied, "I've never before heard anything sold in such a way. Ordinary merchants praise the value of their wares, all the while concealing their faults. Your way becomes you, for holy beings abhor falsehood. They say the virtuous never forsake the truth, even in distress. Tell us then, eminent one, what is in your jar, and what would a mighty being like yourself desire in return?" Remember he said, I never before heard anything sold in such a way. Ordinary merchants praise the value of their wares, all the while concealing their faults. Well, you just told the faults. You just said, if you don't mind the calamities, the sufferings in the next world and the calamities to come in this. So Shakya replied, "Listen carefully, mighty sovereign. This jar does not hold water, not rainwater from the clouds, nor water drawn from holy streams. It holds no fragrant honey gathered from the filaments of flowers, no clarified butter." Do you know what clarified butter is? Ghee. Most of us were it's part of our culture nowadays, right? Ghee. Very good. "Not even milk, the color of moonbeams that open the kamunda flowers on cloudless nights. No, this jar is filled to the brim with pure mischief. And now, if you please, I will list the virtues of this drink. If you drink from this jug, all self-control will leave you. Memory will forsake you, and you will stumble even on smooth ground. Confused and dull-witted, you will not care if what you eat is edible or not. Such is the liquid held in this jug. Pray buy this foulest of jars. Take leave of your senses and act without heed. Be like an animal thoughtlessly rambling, while your enemies laugh as you dance in their midst, dancing to the drumbeat of your own senseless speech. Please buy this jug, it is devoid of all good. When they drink from this jug, even the bashful lose all decorum." That's one of the, what we say, when people sometimes say they drink in order to lose their inhibitions, right? When they drink from this jug, even the bashful lose all decorum and throw off their clothes to prance in the streets. Such is the liquor contained in this jar, and now it is offered to you. drink and lie senseless, covered with vomit. Dogs brazenly licking your face. No, Charlie. What pleasure to buy what is found in this jar. Drink and drink madness held in this jar. Beat your parents to death and kill the Lord of wealth. Pour your life down the drain. Drink your mind away. Like the brothers Andakas and Vrishanyas. I don't know the legend of those. Maybe one of you would know. Andakas and Vrishnyas. Like the brothers, these two brothers take to each other with clubs, such is the madness found in this jug. If you desire what is held in this jar, you will lose your position. Your dignity gone, you will lose your good name. Your wealth, your home, lost. Your family in ruin. In this jar is dissolution for sale. It's like he's trying to... Weeping and laughing with sudden abandon, eyes heavy and dull as if demons possessed one. Reduced to an object of utter contempt, your muddled mind is found in this jug. Drink lays waste the minds of the aged. It weakens the wish to do good for oneself. Clear thinking forgotten, rash actions then follow. Here in this vessel is all that and more. Because of this liquor, the old gods grew careless and were shorn of their glory by the king of the gods, and drowned in the ocean while seeking relief. Such is the havoc wreaked by this jar. Speaking falsehood as if it were truth. I won't mention any names. Speaking falsehood as if it were truth, losing all sense of the right and the wrong of it, you knowingly do what shouldn't be done. Here in this vessel are curses incarnate, the mother of sin and of folly and pain, the source of all evil, the path of all madness. Here in this jar is dreadful darkness of mind. I offer this purchase for the great king to buy. Let him lose all his senses and kill the ascetics, without thought for the future, and kill his own parents as well. O Lord of men, known as a god in this world, such is this liquor. Let whoever is no friend of virtue buy it here. This is still Chakra praising his, giving his spiel, the selling spiel. Whoever depends on this substance will grow accustomed to wrongdoing. He will fall headlong into hell or into the state of an animal or preta. Who then would even look at this jar? Even drinking a little has its effect on the path of existence by slowly destroying good conduct and understanding, pointing one to the state of a beast or a specter. A specter. What is a specter? Ghost. Or to the doors of hell, there to burn in blazing fire. In short, drinking deadens good conduct, kills good reputation, banishes shame and defiles the mind. O king, knowing all this, how can you allow yourself to drink? That's what Chakra said. So then, these powerful words and strong arguments persuaded the king of the destructiveness of liquor. Casting off all desire to drink, the king said to Chakra, "You've affected me surely as a loving father affects his son, or as a teacher moves his devoted pupil. You teach as if you were a Muni who knows the proper way. Your kindness has brought me great benefit. Pray then, accept from me something in return. I will give you 5 villages, 100 slaves, 500 cows, and 10 chariots drawn by the finest horses. This and anything else you may wish is your due as my teacher." Remember the story this morning? What was the thing the king said, if you could find the ruru deer, or it was yesterday? 10 lovely ladies. It was 14 acres and 10 beautiful, comely ladies, something like that. "Whatever else you may ask for henceforth, your reverence, please accept as my gift." Shakya replied, "I do not want villages. I do not need slaves. Know me, O king, to be the lord of the gods, Indra, and know further the speaker of wholesome words desires nothing but acceptance of the teachings and their practice, for this way alone leads to glory and renown. renown. After death, following these practices leads to bliss. Therefore, throw off the habit of drinking, hold fast to right action, and you will share in my heaven. Having fulfilled his intention, Chakra disappeared on the spot, and the king and all of his people refrained from drink forever after. Very skillful means. We need someone like that to appear before certain people in this world occasionally. From this story, one can see how much harm arises from drinking and how the virtuous will attempt to turn others from evil, and needless to say, themselves as well. This story is also pertinent when praising the qualities of the Tathagata, the Buddha, and when showing how the Bhagavat benefited beings in his previous existences, plural. So, have any of you taken any of the 5 precepts? Okay. Let's see. How many people have taken all 5 precepts? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. How many people have taken 4? Oh, okay. How many 3? Okay, 2? You just say 1? Maybe. So, what are the precepts I'm talking about? The 5 precepts: not to kill, not to steal, not to take what is not given. Yeah, this is technically in the. Yeah. Not to lie. So 2 actions of speech. 1 of. 2 actions of body. 1 action of speech. Then what? Sexual misconduct. Again, maybe you could put that 3 in a row. Not to kill, steal, engage in sexual conduct, misconduct. Not to lie, and what? Not to take intoxicants. In the time of the Buddha, it generally was referring to liquor, although nowadays we translate it as intoxicants. So sometimes people, we're told, we come to understand that you can take, you don't have to take all 5 precepts. You can take some portion of them. You have to take, if you're taking the precepts, you have to take 1. Of those 5 precepts, what is the 1 precept you have to take? Do you know? That's become popular. The Lama Yeshe kind of instituted that. That's what you heard? You had anyone else? Actually, in the Vinaya, the 1 precept you have to take is not to take intoxicants. Bleep that out, Chris. She didn't have a mic? Okay. So.
What if you take pain medicine?
Okay, so it's different. Even amongst the Sangha, who were forbidden even to take a drop of alcohol, the Buddha gave permission because sometimes medicine was preserved in alcohol. And so that's an exception, because although some people do take some medicines now to get intoxicated, like what is it, Robitussin or was it? NyQuil, yeah. It maybe doesn't have alcohol, but it has some other kind of downers or uppers in it. If you're taking it to alleviate some dysfunction in your body, that's not considered to be violating that precept. Why is that the 1 precept? Well, you may not know that. You may not have known that that was the 1 precept you're supposed to have, because of the fact that most people today, that's the 1 precept they don't take at the beginning. They'll take all the other 4 and not that. So Lama Yeshe, I remember, maybe some other teachers also gave the position that the 1 you had to take was not to kill, because they're usually taken in conjunction with taking refuge. When you take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, especially when you're taking refuge in Dharma, not to kill.
Geshe Sampo tells the story of...
Sorry, Vera, you'll catch it. Yeah.
Geshe Sampo tells the...
Is it on? Don't wake up Charlie.
Yeah, he's asleep. He's doing well. Geshe Sampo tells the story of the, I guess to cross over a bridge. I forget what he actually uses, but the choice of, I guess, a woman, for a monk, a woman, kill, and then the alcohol.
Right.
And then the person, he chooses the alcohol. And
Thinking
then
it's the least.
yeah. And then he sleeps with the woman and kills the yak.
Yeah. Yeah, that's famous. So in the sutras, it's a woman becomes enamored with one monk living in isolation. And she's trying to seduce him, but he's just rebuffs her, monk, And so she comes, like you say, with a jar of liquor, a goat, and she says, either you have sexual relation with me, or I'm going to commit suicide. Either you have sexual relation with me, kill this goat, and what was the other thing? Or drink this liquor, or I'm going to commit suicide. So from his point of view, worst thing is that she could commit suicide. If I don't do something, she's going to commit suicide. So of the things, killing the goat, drinking the liquor, or having sex with her, he thinks the least, seemingly the least bad is drinking the liquor. So he drinks the liquor, then intoxicated, he has sex with her, he breaks his vow of celibacy, kills the goat, they have dinner. Or maybe they have dinner first, kills the goat. So, Venerable, you have a point.
Well, I just, I heard the expressions of kind of disbelief when you were reading this, kind of from behind me, like this intakes of breath.
Oh, really? Oh.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, there were some intakes of breath in here, vomiting, da-da-da-da,
Yeah,
things.
right. Oh.
And I all I wanted to say was that this description of
The defects
of addiction,
Mhm.
regardless, is incredibly accurate.
Yeah.
There's not a bit of exaggeration in here.
Those who are not have not suffered those in
and
great
I just
detail.
kind of wanted to emphasize,
emphasize
that
that,
there
yeah.
was no.
Good point.
No, nothing was being exaggerated to impress us. It's
Right.
It's just all like this.
Right, and someone who hadn't experienced those particular sufferings to the great extent might think it's exaggeration, but when those who, either yourself or your family or friends who have experienced not just alcohol, heroin, what's the thing now? Crack cocaine, crystal meth, what's the one they snuff? Cocaine. All of these things bring about incredible ruin and sickness and loss of esteem and all of these things. Your whole life is. And we were talking, when we were talking before, those of you who are here, we were talking about the three kinds of suffering. What we call changeable suffering is what we ordinarily in the world experience as samsaric happiness. The Buddha called it changeable suffering. And the example I gave was that it's just actually what it is no more than a relief, replacing one suffering with another, like the suffering of heat going down because of sitting in the cool shade until at a certain point when the suffering of the coolness exceeds the suffering of the heat, you say, oh, let's go sit in the nice warm sun. Never finding any one moment of happiness. It's all just exchanging one suffering with another. So the example I also gave at that time was a heroin addict thinking, oh, I'm just looking forward to this relief, great bliss, not oblivious of what will come afterwards, just because there's so much attachment to that relief.
Venerable George, there is an oblivion when they're doing it. They're already planning where they're going to get their next fix.
Already planning,
Oh,
yeah. I don't know if any of you have ever experienced seeing someone shooting up like that. When I lived in Philadelphia, when I was in graduate school, I met some people that were, I actually saw them shooting up, and it's just so sad. So in the same way that we can imagine ourselves or others counseling those who are about to take drugs or engage in, getting totally bonkers, drinking or whatever, we can understand that person doesn't realize that's not real happiness. That's going to lead to ruin. Holy beings look at us in the same way, you know. We're running after this icky-picky, teeny-weeny happiness. What was that? That was it. Icky-picky, teeny-weeny, yellow polka dot. Okay, I know.
We're showing our age.
Yeah, sure. You don't remember? You younger ones. Yeah. Icky-picky. Do you
I
guys
have
remember that? You
something.
don't? Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Love you remember that?
So we're so caught up with this, you know, obsession with something so small and minuscule, oblivious of the great bliss that we could be, you know, that we could be imbibing of, you know, in practicing the Dharma to find the bliss of liberation. Like the verse we talked about the other day, you know, realizing the shortcomings of cyclic existence, realizing the shortcomings of the greatest booms of cyclic existence, that they are, they bring no satisfaction, as Mick Jagger said. Chepe Mingom Dugna, they're the doorway to all suffering, and they're unreliable. You could apply that to liquor, to all of these other intoxicants. So of the 5 precepts, the one that you should, in the time of the Buddha, and many years after, 1,000 years later, had to be taken was intoxicants, because if you were to become intoxicated, you would easily break the other ones. So that's interesting.
I have something.
Yes, Naga.
See, when in the beginning of studying Buddhism, I didn't know much. I took all 5
Oh, okay.
in Theravada.
Okay.
But as I
It almost sounds like it's like, I foolishly took all 5.
you predict my inner mind so clearly from yesterday. I see that. So as I started learning more, and I felt like, oh, I really have to stick to them.
Yes.
So last time I took 1, I think.
Oh, yeah. In general,
because I broke a lot of.
Yeah. Sometimes we think we can take them again, or maybe some people think. Generally, in the Vinaya, when you take the pratimoksha vows, other than the 24-hour vows, which are just for 24 hours, they are for life. So generally, you can't take them again, but in this time when it's so hard to practice at all, to make another try, that's good, you know, to try again.
Yeah, but I think it's like every step. So if I see an ant, then that's my choice whether to kill it or take it out. So I think it's more of practice each thing slowly. I know alcohol makes me sick, dizzy, so I have to make a choice right then and there, you know.
Yeah.
Kind of, it's a practice more than just taking a vow.
Yeah. Yeah, so sometimes people think, oh, I took the precepts, or sometimes even after they took ordination of a monk or nun, and they somehow see the rules, the vows, as some kind of punishment, like a kid in boarding school. You know what I'm saying? Oh, all these rules. It's like what do they call it? Curbing my style. What do they say? Cramping my style. Cramping my style. But once you begin to recognize the benefits, you actually don't see it as in any way torture or some, like your parents make rules for you. You actually realize that you're protected. There are various vows of a monk or nun. There's some that are called root vows, and some that are a little, say, like concentric circles, a little beyond that, not quite as sensitive, not quite as heavy if you break, some that are a little bit. And the example that's given is if you were to plant a beautiful, plant, what's some tree or something. And if you just leave it alone, the cows will come and eat it and never grow. Even they eat the sprouts, that later the sprout comes, they'll eat it. So you put a little fence around that. Keep the cows out, or the rabbits, or what do you have in your place? The deer. Around here, the deer. The deer. And, but then if that fence gets broken, that one fence you put around, the deer can get in, so you put another protective fence around that. So you don't get to that vow, so to speak. You have vows that protect you from breaking that vow. If you're not supposed to be alone with women, let's say, or men, because of the possibility of, temptation of sexual interest or something, so then you even make a vow to not, to other things that prevent you from even getting there. And then the other vows that are less heavy protect you from that. But they're all meant to protect the root of virtue that we're trying to develop in our mind. Jason, you have a comment?
Yeah, I was thinking from the same mindset as Nanga was thinking about killing a bug or something. But the last time the vows were done, Geshe Sangpo did them, and he said the killing was more for killing humans in the forms of taking the precepts.
I had not heard that, I would say. But generally, if you were to break one of these vows, if you don't continue that day with abandon, thinking, oh, good, I had a great high, or what do you call it, intoxication, or I killed that bug, or I lied, I really fooled them. If you regret what you did, that vow is not completely broken. There have to be certain factors that the vow is completely broken. So if during that time you might have done something, you had made some vow, you took the 5 vows before, what did you say? I can't remember what you said, before I knew, or something like that. You may not have broken them completely. So to really break them completely, you have to be really, you have to try hard. That's a good way of putting it. You have to try hard. Okay, so let me continue. Yes, of course. Of course.
Thank you. Lord of the Gods. I'm confused between that and the God realm. I say that because when Geshe-la talks about the God realm, it's not a place where you want to be, because your life is a certain length and you die and everyone shuns you and you don't practice. This is a different thing, correct?
No, the same thing. But let's say, for instance, from a Dharma point of view, you wouldn't want to be born as the president of the United States, not be born as a president, you wouldn't want to become president of the United States because of the heavy responsibilities of making orders for others
to kill people,
harm their lives and things like this. But the God realms, generally, the Deva realm, say we talk about the 6 realms. Have you heard of the 6 realms? 3 of which are considered to be suffering, more overtly suffering. The hells, the Preta realm, and the animal realm. And then the human, Asura, and Deva realms are said to be realms in which the pleasure that one can experience is greater. And not in one, although sufferings in the desire realm, as a human or some of the desire realm gods can happen. We certainly know that we have suffering as humans. It's not as great as the sufferings in the animal, Preta, or hell realms. So the gods of the desire realm, we talked about before, above the desire realm, there are also devas, or gods of the form and formless realm, where they don't experience any suffering, but also even their pleasure becomes more and more subtle, almost like neutral feelings, just like blanked out for eons. So from a Buddhist perspective, if you were to choose where to be reborn, you wouldn't want to be reborn in the God realms, but not because it's suffering, but because one is almost intoxicated with pleasure.
That's what I was trying to say. I
The
didn't say
fact
it
that
right.
you have great suffering at the time of death is also incidental in the desire realm gods. You know, your garlands fade and other people shun you and your
You stink.
radiance goes away. That's like growing old in Hollywood, right? So that's not so surprising, but the main defect from a Dharma point of view is that being in that position is not conducive to the practice of Dharma. Yet, even born as a human with great resources, if you had not made prayers and dedications in previous lives, when that virtuous karma that you created in the past arises as high station, your high status, noble family, great wealth, it can lead to arrogance, miserliness, immorality, taking advantage of your power, harming others, and so forth. Okay.
Wait.
Cease.
I didn't get the
No, okay, that's good. That's good. Cease. Okay. So, I'm quoting her name. So, I wanted to read another one from before we continue, just so we don't. And this is relatively short, I think. Oh no, it's a little bit longer. Oh, I'll just read the first part, which is relatively short. And there is a reason for this. This is called Descent from Heaven. The Buddha again teaches the Dharma of cause and effect of karma to train beings. The Buddha had gone to the heaven of 33. There, in the garden of Kobidara, the Buddha sat on a flat stone called the White Blanket. It actually has a name there. And turned the wheel of Dharma for the gods, also his mother. What is the heaven of 33? Anyone know? Do you know? It's one of the gods of the desire realm, so the Deva realm, not the Asura below, not the form or formless gods. It's desire realm, slightly high, not the highest of the realms, but it was there that Buddha's mother, after he was born, she passed away. 1 week later, and his actual the woman who raised him was what was his mother's name? Not Mahadevi. I said the other day. Anyway, was not that but her sister. I think it was his aunt who raised him. His mother was reborn in the heaven of 33. So one had to receive a lot of merit to do that. Just recently, I've begun to get emails from the various FPMT centers around the world reminding us that on November 19th is the anniversary, one of the Buddhist holidays of the year, holy days, is called the descent from the heaven of 33, when the Buddha came back after that teaching, back to earth. But many times, many of the centers are uncareful. They say, descent from Tushita. I wrote back to one of them in New Mexico saying, come on, guys. In the writing below, you say the Buddha descended from the heaven of 33, but in the headline you said, come and celebrate the Buddha's descent from Tushita. What is Tushita? There is a God realm called Tushita. I think it happens to be, I'm not sure, happens to be below heaven of 33, or maybe just about, I'm not sure. Anyway, it is a God realm, and one of my teachers, Geshe Repton, used to say, the pure realm named Tushita is kind of like a suburb of that. It is on that level that the Tushita pure realm is in the Deva realm, in the God realm called Tushita, but like on the outskirts. You can't get there unless you have certain karma. It's a little bit like a gated community in Cary or Raleigh. You have some gated community, you know it's there, but you can't get in because you don't have the karma.
So do we want to get in?
Yeah, that's the gated community. You don't want to get in, right? Really, maybe like a country club or something like that. So I just wanted to read that, and then just to give us like a 10-minute, 15-minute break to break this up before we finish for our last thing till 4. So do you need a couple minutes, or you prefer not to have a couple minutes? A couple minutes. Okay, just PB break, tea break, stretch your legs. Thank you. This is good, but it's become very cold. Could you nuke it a little?
I'll nuke it.
Yeah, just in like 30 seconds. Not over 33. 36. Hi, Dylan. Yeah, sure. Sit.
Thanks. How do you turn off your microphone so you're not?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah. How you doing? Did you have a good rest?
We're enlivened.
You're enlivened. Okay.
With a V, not a T.
What?
I did with a V, not a T. Enlivened.
Enlivened, not enlightened. Yeah.
Speaking for myself.
Yes. Let's see, what is-
You have to be enlivened to get enlightened.
Must be this one. That's funny. Okay, I have one down here that I was meaning to read, but I can't figure out which book it was. It was number 6, but it's not 6 in this one. It's not 6 in this one. It's not 6 in that one. So I must have written down the wrong number. So another short one, connecting to some of the things that I mentioned before. This is called Past Lives of Shariputra. Do you remember Shariputra? What Shariputra was? In the Tanka, I mentioned, is this on, Chris? Is that okay? In this painting, Tibetan style, we call Tanka in Tibetan, there are 2 gentlemen standing at the bottom, below the Buddha. One on the Buddha's right, that means to our left, that is his disciple Shariputra. And to the Buddha's left, to our right, that one is called Moggallana, or Maha Moggallana. They were the two boys I mentioned that had made a pact when they were little, that if one of them found the true path to liberation, he should tell him, and they got together and they became followers of the Buddha. So this Jataka from the Leaves of the Heaven Tree is number, I'm not sure which number it is. Anyway, it's on page 90. The Past Lives of Shariputra. The Buddha teaches the Dharma by applying the teaching of the cause and effect of karma. Have you heard of the law of cause and effect? In physics, usually we say every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Which one of Newton's laws is that? I was never quite. Is it third law? Isn't it?
Conservation of energy.
No, that's another. I think it's third law of Newton's third law, right? So a little bit like that. We use the same words when we talk about karma. In the mental realm, also our actions. Remember, I said the mind is of a different continuum than matter. It can't be created by energy. It can't. It doesn't have the qualities of matter that obstruct and so forth. It's also impermanent, like matter, but it's of a different continuum. But a similar kind of law occurs within the mental realm, in the mind, which is what we usually talk when we talk about karma. I mentioned in one of the other classes that sometimes when I talk to people in the West, high school or college students, what does karma mean? And someone said, oh yeah, it means what goes around comes around. Have you heard that expression? Oh yeah? Mm-hmm. I did a little research because it never made much sense to me. What goes around comes around. That expression apparently comes from the Dark Ages when the plague was going around Europe. If you were to ask, is the plague coming to the Mackless house? Well, what goes around comes around. It was going to come to our village. Better explanation, I think, is what is attributed to Christ in the Bible. Ye reap what ye sow. It's much more precise, and that's really, if you create a cause that's noxious, you're going to have some noxious results. You will have harvest or you will reap the rewards or the faults of that. So the Buddha teaches Dharma by applying the teachings of cause and effect of karma. Karma as cause and effect as related to karma. Karma actually means what? Action. Actions are usually the causes. So this section begins, when virtuous friends and spiritual masters work with circumstances to enable us to achieve virtue, their ways of helping us are not the same as the ways of our parents and siblings, relatives or lovers used to try to help us. For example, when the Bhagavan was residing in Rajagriha, the royal capital, in the bamboo grove of the Kalandaka bird, Atisha and Kaulita, who had already become renunciates, became monks and then attained the state of Arhat. Atisha was the childhood name of Shariputra. So it says, Atisha, now known as Shariputra, became the disciple with the loftiest attributes of intelligence and wisdom. The Buddha, on many occasions, would point out to the various members of the community, the Sangha, was it Judy? Judy, you are the foremost in red shirts. Yeah. Jill, you are the foremost in long hair, or something like that, So Shariputra was pointed out as the foremost in wisdom. Moggallana was the foremost, we mentioned before, in what? Do you remember? Psychic powers. Mahakashyapya, do you know, Chris, which Kashyapya was foremost in? He was foremost in ascetic practices. He's the one, when the Buddha was spending 6 years in ascetic practice with these 5 disciples who eventually he would teach the Dharma to, he left at one point that community because he realized that they were going too far in asceticism. They weren't eating enough to sustain their bodies. They became weak, and he had tried to wash himself in a river, and he was so weak he fell in, almost drowned, and he was able to get out. He said, "Whoa!" It's like someone that realized nowadays, "Oh, I have to take heart medicine. I just fell, foolish." So he met a girl who was taking. She was a servant of a family. She was taking a body. You know this story? She was taking a body to the matriarch of the family. She was just the maid that had passed away. She was taking her to the funeral pyre. The family, the maid does that, So the body was wrapped in a shroud, outer shroud and an inner shroud. The inner shroud was more gross. And so the Buddha came out, Siddhartha came out. He was not yet the Buddha, of course. And he didn't have any clothes. So she gave him this shroud to wear, and he made some robes out of it. And that was his first robe, which he wore for many years as he developed attendance. Bristly, really the lowest quality cloth. What do we call it? Horsehair or something like that? In Christian they talk about some burlap, sackcloth, something like that. Very coarse, not something you'd go out of your way to wear. It was just like that was being used as a shroud. So when, at a certain point, one of his disciples, Kashyapya, who was exceedingly good in the ascetic practices that the Buddha set forth. There's something like 13 ascetic practices. You know what they are, right? Any ascetic practice? You don't know? Yeah. The things like once you begin eating a meal, if you get up, you can't eat anymore. Different kinds of very stringent things. And you can look, if you look up on the omniscient Google, the 13 ascetic practices of Buddhism, you can see. So anyway, Kashyapa was the best in those, and so the Buddha, as an honor, he gave him this shroud, the robe that he had worn from that time, which was so uncomfortable, but the Buddha, it helped him to attain that state. And Kashyapa, I think, wore it the rest of his life, you know. So different people were pointed out, like Upali, the barber, was foremost of what? Do you know? Morality. He's the one who read, when the Buddha passed away, he recited all of the teachings on discipline. Did I tell you the story of Upali? When Siddhartha had left the palace, he was a prince, he went to a stupa with his horsemen, he cut off his hair, gave his robes and jewelry to the horsemen, had just very simple robes, went off to study with the great teachers. He was going to try to find a way to liberation. So his horsemen came back with that. Everyone was upset he'd left. But when he became, after the 6 years of meditation and other experiences, he achieved enlightenment, he had a great following of people. Many of the court wanted to join him. And in particular, some of the royal court, Ananda, his cousin, Devadatta, some of the other nobles of the court, they came in a similar way. They went to that same stupa that the Buddha had gone to, across the river from the palace. They cut off their hair, and took their jewelry and their clothes and gave it to the barber who had come along with them. Sort of, barber is kind of the low, not one of the royal caste, right? Not necessarily untouchable, but sort of like low caste. What? Shudra. So, but he was very smart, Upali, and he told him he wanted to go. He wanted also to go and become a disciple of the Buddha. So he said, they said, okay, ride back to the palace with our clothes and jewelry, and tell them we have gone like the Buddha did before. You know, a little pride. And he said, no, because if I go back with all your stuff, before I get to the gate, they will kill me thinking I assassinated you. I owe your jewelry. So I have to go with you. I could be your attendant. They said, okay, you make the tea, you know. So they went off, still Upali's in this low position. When they meet the Buddha, as a group, the Buddha, they ask, we want to take ordination. And you remember you weren't here for the children's, not all of you were here for the children's. I'm told the story of the 4 friends. Do you know the story of the 4 friends? The elephant, the monkey, the rabbit, and the partridge, or a bird, okay, pigeon, whatever. So they decided to stay in that order because to honor seniority. The senior most would be held in highest esteem. So the partridge was oldest because it remembered the tree that's near them. He remembered when it was just a seed, and he ate the seed and pooped it out. He was there from the beginning. What's below him? The rabbit. The rabbit said, I remember. Sorry, I was trying to do Bugs Bunny. I remember when it was just a shoot, and I just ate the leaves. Okay, so you were there pretty early. The monkey said, I remember when it was, as high as me. And the elephant said, I remember when it was up to my shoulder. So he was the lowest. He acted as the base, and then the monkey was on his shoulders, and then the hare was on his shoulders or head, and the partridge is at the top. So it was talking about respect for one's elders. So here, I forgot where I was saying that. Okay, is it my old age? Upali, yeah, so good. I didn't want to miss that story. I'm beginning to have the first stages of old age dementia, I think. Can't remember from short-term memory. So Upali and all of these royal court are there. Upali's, they're kind of, get off to the side. And the Buddha says, yes, I will ordain you. And he turns to Apali, you're first. So he becomes the senior. All of the other ones thereafter always have to give him the best seat, let him have the first food, they have to serve him. So it was like the Buddha's skillful means to deflate the pride of these people. So, so Shariputra is known as the loftiest attributes of intelligence and wisdom. So he was a foremost in wisdom. The other monks marveled at this and asked the Buddha, what acts from long ago caused Shariputra to have such unequaled wisdom? The Buddha replied, long ago, Shariputra was a Brahmin maiden. You shouldn't think that we're always a man or a woman. At that point, he was a woman, called Survika. Her brother, Surpapa, became a Pratika Buddha. Do you know what a Pratika Buddha is? Is that actually Buddha? There the word Buddha means realizer. Pratika means individual, so someone who makes a very strong wish. Although they're Buddhist practitioners, sort of following the Hinayana, they want to achieve enlightenment when there's no Buddha in the world, just from their own memory of teachings. I remember there was a TV commercial some time ago, I think for dishwashing detergent, and the mother's coming in trying to things, and the girl says, "Mother, please, I'd rather do it myself." Oh, yeah. Do you remember that one? What was it?
Yes. Mother, please.
Mother, there you go. I thought you knew which soap it was. I wasn't sure. Okay.
Aspirin, I think.
Was it aspirin?
Yeah, because then she would go like this because she was cranky because she had a headache.
Oh, okay. I thought it was for dishwasher. Anyway, a little bit like that, Pratika Buddha. It means, he was attempting to become an arhat. So her brother, Surapa, and Survika, the girl who was the earlier reincarnation of Shariputra, and her husband delighted in honoring and showing their esteem for him. Okay, so Shariputra had been born as this woman who was married. She and her husband paid homage to Survika's brother, Surpapa, who was a Pratika Buddha. Survika made Dharma robes as a gift for her brother. And as she contentedly sewed the robes with needle and scissors and thread, she made the following wishing prayer. By the root of this virtue, may I, in all future lives, have intelligence and wisdom as sharp as these scissors. May my wisdom reach as deeply as this needle, and may it be unhindered as this thread. Thus she became Shariputra, brilliant and wise. She created the karma for that. You might think, oh, such simple action, sewing, how could she create such virtuous action? The action is mainly created by the mind, the intention of the mind, the motivation. My teacher, Lama Yeshe, when he first came to the United States, now it was like 1974, I think, or 73, the first visit he made to the United States. And he visited a lot of the students who had come to our monastery in Nepal, in Kopan, and above Bodhinath. And a lot of those students had come back to the West. Some of them had started little study groups. Maybe, I don't know, was Kadampa Setter already here? Was Don and Rob? 1990, okay. So, but there were some couple of centers around, and Lama visited a lot of the old students, and he said of all the students he visited in the States, one stood out as having made the greatest progress. His profession, his job at the time was putting the cans up in the grocery store. And you might say, wow, how could, he's just like simple job, simple person. Lama said, with each can that he put up, he thought, like this, may I bring the, mandarin orange of happiness into the minds of all sentient beings, or the tomato sauce of this. And when he arranged them, may all sentient beings' minds be clear and organized. So he was applying similar kind of motivation to a very simple task. So when we do very simple tasks, when you sweep, when you vacuum, and you think, like this, may I clean up all of the dirt in the minds of all sentient beings, including my own. And as you see that, the vacuum sucking up the dirt, and you have some understanding of the possibility of removing things from our mind, maybe having a little insight into emptiness or whatever, it leaves an imprint. This is possible, and a strong motivation to do it. When you wash the dishes, I try to do that. Just like this, may I wash the stains off from the minds of sentient beings. Whether Mother says, it's trying to bother you, you say, Mother, let me, Mother, please. Yeah, I remember the please. Mother, please. I'd rather do it myself. So like this, Lama noticed that that particular young man, had developed the greatest progress. So again, the monks asked the Buddha, why was Shariputra born in a family of Brahmin priests whose resources were so limited? So it's a little bit like Susie asking, one question leads to another question, leads to another question, right? Long ago, there lived a king named Mahamati who was rich and powerful, but who wanted above all to renounce the world and become a monk. His father, however, prevented him from doing so, saying, how could wealth and glory be harmful to one who has attained perfect virtue and is faithful? Son, this is your destiny, and as it is thus established, it is not right for you to renounce it. Because of these loving words, Mahamati turned his mind to ruling the kingdom. One day, mounted upon his great elephant, Mahamati was traveling along the highway when he met up with an old and impoverished mendicant, beggar. Feeling compassion, he said to him, I have the misfortune of being wealthy. We wouldn't say that today, right? I have the misfortune of being wealthy and am bound by friends and family. I am powerless to practice the Dharma. You are unattached. Why do you not practice the Dharma? The old man replied, Your Majesty, I have neither begging bowl nor Dharma robes, nor do I have any of the other requisites for practicing the Dharma. And so King Mahamati, son of kings, gave the old man all he needed. The old man entered the forest of the ascetics and became a practitioner. In a very short time, the old man became a Pratika Buddha. Thinking of Mahamati's great kindness, the Pratika Buddha then went to the palace where he praised Mahamati and showed him various miraculous feats, inspiring great devotion and faith. Alas, said the prince, a high caste, power, and wealth are misfortune for Dharma practice. A low caste and poverty are misfortunes as well. May I, in all lives, come to be born in a middle-class family, which will provide me only with the barest necessities. Having made this prayer of aspiration in front of the Pratika Buddha, from then on, Shariputra has always been born in a Brahmin family, having the requisites for sustenance and education, but lacking wealth or high position. Long ago, in front of Buddha Kashyapa, one of the previous Buddhas in this world, Shariputra made a prayer of aspiration. In the future, may I become a monk and the disciple of Buddha Shakyamuni. May I be the finest among those possessing wisdom. Thus it was prophesied. Do you know where the present Dalai Lama was born? I mean, of course, where, meaning Tibet, but in what family? What kind of family?
It was a small farming family.
Very wealthy family, right? No. Just a normal family, it's kind of like
Small farmhouse with
small
a red
house.
had red roof.
Was it turquoise? Was it
Turquoise.
turquoise roof? Something. There was one of the in the party that had gone to Lama Lotso, this lake, prophetic lake in Tibet, which you can still visit today. He saw a roof, a letter A, which he understood to be Amdo province, and a little house, a chapel with a turquoise roof, which was the temple nearby. It had a sort of turquoise colored, blue colored roof. And they went to this very modest place. So the Dalai Lama, you might think, oh, the Dalai Lamas will always be born in royal caste or something like that. Not always the case. So I wanted to share that with you. Sometimes too much comfort, too much riches become a hindrance. Sometimes we might bemoan our center, we don't have all the requisites that you have there, or I myself don't have all the requisites, I can't practice Dharma. Sometimes the state of not having those requisites is better because you're not distracted by these things. I remember in the early days of my when I took ordination, Geshe Rapton started a center in Switzerland. And a lot of the monks, Alan Wallace and Stephen Batchelor, who are famous now, writers and scholars, they were monks at the time. And they all had their own private room, unlike, we would have to be in dormitories, or we had these little teeny cells. And each one had their own Swiss sponsor, would give them money every month. They had a television in their room. Geshe-la gave them permission to listen to classical music. Generally, monks are not supposed to listen to music. And not one of those is still a monk, I think, at this time. They've done their own things, but in all of that, one might have thought, wow, with all of those cooperative conditions, it would have made very rapid progress. But sometimes without those, like being the other extreme, not having anything at all, it's very hard to practice. You don't have enough. You have to work. You don't have time to meditate. But just to find that middle way is kind of one of the essential teachings of the Buddha, in all different levels, to tread the middle way, even in the philosophical view of emptiness and so forth. So we've got a couple minutes left. I wonder if you have any other concerns, questions, comments, criticisms, observations. Pretty good? You have, Venerable.
Since clearly a lot of my information about the Jataka Tales was not very accurate.
She's referring to, she said that she was reading a story about a tree and a kusha grass who talked to one another. And I told her from the Buddhist perspective, it didn't sound like a Jataka tale because trees and plants don't have minds.
But
I mean, just for their sake,
yeah,
so they know what you're talking about.
But there's other things that you've said
right,
that I go, okay. Could you place the Jataka Tales a little more in context of, how they came to be written down? And because people have said, oh no, those were Hindu stories that got transformed, and I'm not saying that's true, but kind of more in the context of how it happened a little bit.
I think
Thank you.
The Jatakas were all episodes that the Buddha explained in the course of various discourses, or when different things happened. Like some of these said, the people asked the Buddha, how did this come about? How did Shariputra come about to be foremost in wisdom? Because of that prayer he made when sowing as a woman in a previous life, may my sharpness be like the needle, and I cut through, unhindered like the thread. So in answer to the questions of disciples, and later those episodes were compiled as collections. They were drawn from the sutras. Okay, so they were actually explained in the sutras. In the Theravada today, in the Pali Canon, the Jatakas are found. I can't remember which collection. Someone who's watching this on Facebook will know more than I. You can actually find the collection of Jatakas in the Pali Canon, the Hinayana scriptures, Theravada. So they do accept the existence of the Bodhisattva path, the individual who forgoes entering into nirvana for their own welfare to work for enlightenment for the welfare of everyone else. But from their point of view, that kind of individual is so rare that there's no need to talk about all of the path. Whereas in the Mahayana, that's one of the reasons to establish the existence of the Mahayana teachings as actually being the word of Buddha, that they set out in great detail all of the stages of the Bodhisattva. You know, the Buddha explained in various sutras, Mahayana sutras, how the Bodhisattva should practice in various ways. So some of those, like say the Jataka Kamala by Aryashura, that's the one that was studied by the Kadampa Geshis, that just has 34, obviously made in very nice cadence and language and everything by Aryashura, drawing 34 stories that he thought were important. That's not the only collection. That was, you know, there's the other collections, like this is 108, but as you yourself, Venerable, had pointed out, in the Pali Canon, there are 500 or 800 stories, some of which, when you read them, I haven't read all of them, but some of them you read and say, oh, this is same as that, but just, you know, sometimes the renditions as they were edited and written down might have varied in just some small detail. The Sutra of the Wise and the Foolish is another compendium of these kind of Jataka tales, especially those that especially emphasize the benefits, being wise in one life, how that ripens in some beneficial in the future, and then being foolish in a former life, following the path of non-virtue leads to, you know, deficits in the future lives. The Sutra of the Wise and the Foolish. So if you have a chance yourself, if someone wants to buy you something sometime, the two big volumes are both, one is paperback edition, so it looks different, but they're both by Dharma Publishing. One is called The Marvelous Companion. That's the Jataka Kamala by Aryashura. The other is called The Leaves of the Heaven Tree, which has 108, like the number of beads in the rosary, stories, written by a great Sanskrit Indian scholar. And the Sutra of the Wise and the Foolish was published by the Library of Tibetan Works and Archives, and you can find that on Amazon, I think. Is it? Yeah. Or on Amazon. The Sutra of the Wise and the... Yeah, definitely.
And that'll make it easy.
Yeah, I know. Nowadays, rather than writing things down, it's like people have forgotten how to do arithmetic any longer because they have calculators. Right.
The first one that you said, the marvelous something, that's the same as the Garland of Life Stories. It's just the word what it's published under.
It's their own English title.
It's the
Marvelous Companion. But it's actually the English translation by this Dharma translation group in California, the students of Tartan Tulku, called Dharma Publishing. So usually those that you've probably seen in your library, you have probably a bunch of these read.
No, we don't, Venerable George, but I was going to mention for people who are interested that our bookstore manager got only a few of these books in, and they sold out right away. And if anybody wants to get copies of them, he'll do a special order, a prepaid special order for you, so you don't have to all go to and find them. So
also,
if you want to get them, then talk to me or Jill, and we'll get that lined up for you.
Just financially, that's a wise thing to do, because you'd have to pay postage for your book. If you get them all sent together, the center will get a little discount, being a Dharma bookstore, and then the postage can be divided amongst you rather than each one paying a big chunk. So those are good. And the Sutra of the Wise and the Foolish, it's no longer published. You can only find it used. I got a new copy.
I think you can get it new, but you can also get it used.
Yeah.
And for as little as, well,
This is the Tibet
found
bookstore.
a new copy for $5 plus $4 shipping. So
Right. I got this when I was in Kathmandu, so if anyone's going over. So those are three good references of the wise and the foolish. Okay, so thank you so much for coming on what would have been a day when you might have enjoyed walking around the lake or other things. brings pleasure to my mind to not to speak to an empty room. Although it might have been Chris might have been here, he broadcasts anyway. Thank you, and for your good questions and good heart. Let's just make a final dedication of the merit that we've created this weekend. Due to the karma that we've created in the past, the present, and the future, especially this weekend, virtuous karma, may we be able in the future to emulate all of these actions of the Bodhisattva sequentially when the time is right. Giving, practicing ethics and morality, patience, enthusiastic perseverance, concentration and wisdom, to benefit sentient beings at that very time, but as a means to accumulate the merit for ourselves to reach the state of Buddhahood, to perfectly, effortlessly, and continuously benefit all sentient beings. Due to these merits, may I quickly become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. Thank you very much. Is there any announcement you have to make?
No.
No?
Just remind everybody tomorrow night is Discovering Buddhism, Death and Rebirth. Wednesday night is the Four Noble Truths and the 12 Links of Dependent Arising. Thursday night is Lama Chopa, and next weekend Venerable George will teach Sunday morning, and then the following weekend is the Mahamudra. And on Thursday of next week, you'll be a teaching on the Heart Sutra through using translation.
Anyone who's interested in Tibetan, who especially might want to come, but even if you're not interested in Tibetan, you might pick up some nuggets about the Heart Sutra. Some other?
Yeah, we could do the praises.
You want to do the praises of 21 Taras again?
So, let's go ahead. Huh? Yeah. Okay.
No, I don't have.
Okay.
I'm interested in the Heart Sutra.
Okay.
You're welcome to come.
So go to page 191 in your gold prayer book, and we'll start with the invocation. From your sublime abode at the Potala, O Tara, born from the green letter Tam, your crown adorned with Amitabha, action mother of the Buddhas of the three times, Tara, please come with your attendants. The gods and demigods bow to your lotus feet, O Tara, you who rescue all who are destitute. To you, Mother Tara, I pay homage. O my prostrate to the noble transcendent liberator, homage Tara, swift heroic, as like lightning instantaneous, sprung from opening stamens of the Lord of Three Worlds, tear-born lotus. Homage she whose face combines 100 autumn moons at fullest, blazing with light rays resplendent as 1,000-star collection. Homage golden blue one lotus, water-born in hand adorned, giving effort, calm austerities, patience, meditation, her sphere. Homage, crown of Tathagatas, actions triumph without limit, relied on by conquerors' children, having reached every perfection. Homage, filling with tutare, whom desire direction and space, trampling with her feet the seven worlds, able to draw forth all beings. Homage, worshipped by the all-Lord, Chakra, Agni, Brahma, Marut, honored by the host of spirits, corpse raisers, Gandharvas, Yakshas,
Homage with her
tray and pace sounds, destroying false magic diagrams, her feet pressing left out right in, blazing in a raging fireplace. Homage to Ray, very dreadful, destroyer of Mars champions, she with frowning lotus visage, who is slayer of all enemies. Homage at the heart, her fingers adorn her with regal mudra, light ray masses all excited, all directions wills adorn her. Homage she so joyous, radiant, crown emitting garlands of light, mirthful laughing with tutare, subjugating Mara's devas. Homage she able to summon all earth guardians assembly, shaking, frowning with her home sign, saving from every misfortune. Homage crown adorned with crescent, moon all ornaments most shining, Amitabha in her hair, not sending out much light eternal. Amit she mid-wreath ablaze like eon ending fire abiding. Restless left and choice around you, troops of enemies destroying. Amit she who strikes the ground with her palm and with her foot beats it, scaling with the letter whom the 7 levels she does conquer. Amit happy, virtuous, peaceful, she whose field is peace nirvana, she endowed with Om and Soha, destroyer of the great evil. Amit she with joy surrounded, tearing foes' bodies asunder, frees with whom in knowledge mantra, arrangement of the 10 letters. Amit Ture with seed letter, of the shape of syllable hum. By foot stamping shakes the 3 worlds, Meru, Mandara, and Vindhya. Amit holding in her hand the hair mark moon of Deva lake form, with her spoken Tara and Pei, totally dispelling poison. Amit she whom gods and their kings and the Kinnaras do honor, armored in all joyful splendor, she dispels bad dreams and conflicts. Amit she whose 2 eyes bright with radiance of sun and full moon, with Taisara and Tutare, she dispels severe contagion. Amit full of liberating, powered by the set of 3 natures, destroys hosts of spirits, yakshas, and raise corpses supreme Ture. These praises with root mantras and prostrations those are 21. And page 190 for the prayer of the benefits. Whoever is endowed with devotion for the goddess and recites this with supreme faith, remembering it at dawn upon waking and in the evenings, will be granted all fearlessness, will perfectly pacify all negativities, and will eliminate all unfortunate migrations. The multitudes of conquerors will quickly grant initiation. Thus endowed with this greatness, one will eventually reach the state of a Buddha. If affected by the most terrible poison, whether ingested, drunk, or from a living being, just by remembering will one be thoroughly cleansed. If this prayer is recited 2, 3, or 7 times, it will pacify all the sufferings of torments caused by spirits, fevers, and poisons, and by other beings as well. If you wish for a child, you will get a child. If you wish for wealth, you will receive wealth. All your wishes will be fulfilled, and all obstacles pacified.
You probably know that this was called a prayer of benefits, actually goes at the end of that prayer. If you count, in the last, at the end of the Tara praise, there's just 2 lines, right? These praises with the root mantras and prostrations are thus 21. The next 2 lines of that stanza are, whoever is endowed with devotion for the goddess and recites this with supreme faith. Then you see there's 3 more stanzas after that. So those 2 lines, you might say, it ended in 2 lines. That's not right. So I guess maybe Geshe-la or someone thought to put it at the beginning as though cause and effect. If you know the benefits, then you want to recite it. But the benefits also have a sense of coming afterwards. Oh, right. Just, there you go. So thanks again. Have a very good night. Try to enjoy whatever time you have in the outdoors tonight.